Good morning, my wonderful things. Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone is having a great start to their week so far. Welcome back to the Cavern. To the newcomers, welcome to the channel, which focuses on a wide range of topics, so there's bound to be something here that'll pique your interest. I hope, anyways. The new things, thank you so much for your support. You're all so amazing. And I love talking to all of you. So much fun. Since it is Clown and Doll Month, I did promise to discuss John Wayne Gacy, the notorious killer clown. I will admit something to all of you, though, and this actually may come as a surprise and a shock. I hate studying serial killers. Absolutely hate it. I can watch horror movies, no problem, but serial killers are not easy for me. Before psychology and my criminal justice classes that I took in college for my master's and bachelor's degrees, I had no problem watching documentaries on serial killers. Honestly, I was fascinated. I'm not anymore. I don't really care. Because I know what causes serial killers for the most part. There's always going to be outliers. Most of the serial killers that we discussed in my classes had issues in their childhood, either from their parents, family members, or caregivers that led to their killer instincts, I guess you could call it. Gacy was no different, and I honestly sympathized with him. I know I sound psychotic for feeling bad for a serial killer, but I actually brought this up to my professor because I was called a psycho for feeling bad for them. And she said that it's actually better to see them as human than to have this bias where you just see them as a monster. Because when you see them as just a monster, you miss out on understanding why, understanding them, understanding also how to prevent it in the future, if at all possible. And they're right. I don't approve of the murders he committed, and I feel terrible for the families that lost their loved ones because they crossed paths with him. And I will say it's not just Gacy that had trouble with his family. It's also Richard Ramirez did too, his cousin. His cousin exposed him to a lot of violent stuff. He shot and killed his wife in front of him. He showed him disgusting and disturbing pictures that he took of the things that he did to women in Vietnam while he was serving for America, the United States, during the war. So it's common. And I'm going to give you a fair warning. This is actually pretty graphic, the type of life that John Gacy was born into. It's actually why I have such a hard time with serial killers. It's their childhoods. I have such a hard time stomaching what they endured. I cried my eyes out when I read the book for this assignment that I had back in college because I had to study Gacy. I'll leave the links in the description box for those of you interested to know more about the case. Gacy was born to a father who was an abusive alcoholic. He would often harm his wife and children. So already Gacy was exposed to violence. John Wayne Gacy was named after his father, too, which probably didn't help things. The only difference is their middle names. John Gacy Sr. was serious, self-contained, somber, and incapable of displaying gentler emotions like happiness or sorrow. And it's believed that he had his own mental illnesses and probably contributed to how he raised his children. He could have had antisocial personality disorder because he was aggressive, very aggressive, and couldn't show emotions. He also felt that parents that didn't beat their children were spoiling them. For that reason, he would use a belt anytime his children were misbehaving. Great fucking father. At the age of 3, young John Wayne Gacy was molested by a 15-year-old girl in the neighborhood. She lured Gacy in by saying they were playing house and he was the baby. I read somewhere, and I don't know if it's true or not, that Gacy actually did go to his father about the molestation, and his dad beat the living hell out of him, claiming that he should have enjoyed it unless he's gay, and beat him for that, which is pretty fucked up if that actually did happen. At the age of 5, Gacy started having seizures, which the doctors prescribed a large amount of various drugs to counteract the seizures, one of which was Dilantin, which produced a lot of side effects, and phenobarbital, which also had a ton of side effects. It's believed that these strong prescriptions and high doses of these medications probably had long-lasting effects on Gacy well into adulthood. Gacy's father believed that his son was faking the seizures to gain the attention from his mother, to which John Jr.'s mother would always defend him, which just made the abuse so much worse. Gacy Sr. would taunt Gacy Jr. by saying he was a mama's boy and would call him a he-she. Gacy Sr. also would proceed to tell John Gacy Jr. that he would become gay because of his behaviors. Because according to Sr., his son's illness, was a weakness according to Sr. And the fact that Jr. always clung to his mother, and of course, the mother always defended her son, also made him weak. So therefore, he was going to be gay because of these reasons, which isn't true, but that's what he believed. Gacy Sr. was a strong Catholic and brought his children up in a religious home, a very strong religious home. As Gacy grew up, his father's harassment also grew. He never saw his son as strong. He always saw him as a weak man, child. He actually killed Gacy Jr.'s dog to punish him and would constantly beat him for the smallest mistake. He never missed a chance to call his son stupid, dumb, or a disappointment. By the age of 9, Gacy Jr. was molested by a friend of the family who would give him rides in the truck. According to what Gacy said, the act would always involve wrestling or tickling, and then somehow Gacy Jr.'s head would always be in the assailant's crotch. He knew in some way that he was being victimized, but he felt powerless to do anything about it because his father most likely wouldn't have believed him because this is his friend that is being accused. And he probably would have beat the hell out of him for saying something like that, making that accusation. School wasn't much better for Gacy Jr. His peers didn't like him. They thought he was really weird. However, he volunteered within the school and outside of it, probably to stay away from his dad. He also volunteered at the Catholic Church his family was a part of, which of course Sr. would be thrilled about. John Wayne Gacy Jr. dropped out of school at the age of 19 because he felt he could work instead, and Gacy was always trying to win his father's affection, which never happened. Gacy Sr. actually bought Gacy Jr. a 1960 Chevy Impala, which became Jr.'s pride and joy. However, the car came with a catch, which isn't really surprising. Gacy Sr. loaned Gacy the money for the car, and now John was in debt to his father. This meant that John's dad had more control over him than ever before. John soon left after finding he had enough of his dad's abuse and traveled to Las Vegas, where he got a job at a mortuary. Unfortunately, people started rumors stating he was having intercourse with the dead or slept in the coffins with the dead. And he actually stated numerous times these were untrue accusations. He picked up dead bodies from all of the hospitals and other things for them, but he claimed he had nothing to do with the bodies. He did live in the mortuary, but not in the embalming room, which is where the corpses were kept. He probably didn't have anything to do with the dead. I actually believe him, because it doesn't fit his MO. The police never linked Gacy to any of the disappearances of the young people, because the police believed that these were just runaways and they would turn up eventually. So they never really looked into it. That is until Robert Heist went missing. He worked at a pharmacy, which is where he was abducted from. Gacy would go usually to the gay section of town to lure his victims by dressing as a police officer, not a clown, like some people believe. He would bring them back to his place where he would show them tricks that he used to entertain the ill children at the hospitals, where he would dress up as a clown and volunteer as. The tricks involved a handcuff and rope trick. The handcuff trick Gacy would show would lock the person's wrist behind their back, and you would give them the illusion that they could undo them without a key. Once the handcuffs were on his victims, he would sexually assault them and then strangle them with the rope trick, which I don't remember what that is, and I don't want to know. I really don't. He would put on the clown outfit while performing these tricks for his victims, which I thought was kind of weird, and adorn the makeup that you can see behind me. The angles that you can see, the pointy areas, they actually found that that makes the person more menacing, and it's not the right way to put on clown makeup. I don't know if Gacy did it intentionally or if he just did it subconsciously. I don't know. It is something that I find interesting, and I did not know that about clown makeup. I didn't know there was a difference, because clowns to me are creepy no matter what they're wearing, so I don't know. There was a talk amongst the gay community about Gacy being a police officer, so many victims that did survive Gacy's attacks refused to report the event because they thought that no one would believe them. They wouldn't take it seriously, because if you accuse a police officer, I mean, most people, they don't believe that a police officer would do something like that. And police officers usually stick up for one another because it's a brotherhood, and that makes it more difficult as well when you make an accusation like that, because how do you know it's true? How do you know it's not? Especially when you work with a person, it's difficult. When the police questioned Gacy about why he sexually assaulted and killed his victims, he claimed he never used force. Like, they all consented. He couldn't force them because of his heart condition. That's what he claimed anyways, but they actually found that he did not have a heart condition, so it was lies. Unless he honestly believed that. Gacy felt that since the men sold themselves for $20, they killed themselves. He felt the need to kill his victims because he blamed his victims for his actions, and may have felt ashamed for his confusing sexuality. I honestly believe Gacy was gay, and couldn't come to terms with his sexuality because of the trauma his father put him through during childhood. A psychiatrist found that because of the abuse Gacy endured by his father, it could explain why he bound his victims before killing them. Bounding his victims allowed him to recreate the helplessness, excuse me, he felt, along with the sense of failure that he had always experienced growing up. Gacy also suffered from schizophrenia, which was not being treated, and he actually wasn't diagnosed with until the trial where he had to do the psych evaluation. And could have had issues with breaking out of his delusion that his victims were all consenting to his twisted games since they were selling themselves. It meant he could do whatever he wanted with them. That's what he believed. He saw all his victims as prostitutes. Unfortunately, Rob Pice was just a teen looking for a job to pay for the vehicle he was saving up for. But Gacy couldn't understand anything outside of his delusion. There is a big debate on whether Gacy was a pedophile. Usually pedophiles only find children attractive once they reach 13. That attraction sometimes dies down. Usually it does. There is such thing as hebephilia, which is the attraction towards teenagers. Usually hebephiles aren't pedophiles and pedophiles aren't hebephiles. Of course, there's outliers, but that's the majority. It often gets combined into pedophilia, though, even though they're a little different, in my opinion, anyways. I honestly don't think Gacy was looking at ages, to be honest. I think he was looking at opportunity. Whoever was on the street or willing to get in his vehicle, he's just assumed prostitute, adult. I don't think he knew what the victims' ages were. I think he just assumed they all were 18. I mean, he wasn't carding everyone. He didn't ask them what their age was. I honestly don't know, though. I can't say one way or the other. I really can't. All I can say is he was a creep, and he was sick. He had some serious issues that he never got help for. What are your thoughts on Gacy? Do you think he was a child predator or just targeted anyone he thought wouldn't get looked into, like sex workers and unfortunately those in the gay community? Do you think Gacy is a product of nature or nurture or both? I honestly think both. I think he may have been born with a mental illness, or maybe the seizures created one, which is possible because seizures over long term can cause brain damage. Depends on how severe the seizures are, and the impact it has on the brain. It just all depends. Not everybody who has seizures is going to have a mental illness. It all just depends. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, especially if you've heard something different related to the case. I'm curious. What I have is from a long time ago, and the book that I used for my research was from a police officer that was investigating the case fully, so I don't know if new things were found. I have no idea. I don't think anything new would have been found since he is dead. You can't exactly go ask him, hey, did you really do this? Did this really happen? You can't really go ask him anything. They executed him, I don't know how long ago. But if you do know something, feel free to share it. I'm all open. I'm fine with it. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end. Later this week, I'll discuss my favorite clowns in horror and maybe review a clown movie I haven't seen yet. I don't know what it'll be. So if you don't want to miss those, click the bell icon to never miss a video. Can't wait for more. Check out my other videos on the screen. Take care until next time and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye, everyone.